essentially this is a cost averaging in system with automatically adjusting profit targets here based on, the, well, not necessarily the changing average entry price when cost averaging in, but actually the target is actually automatically adjusting based on price, based on where the market goes there. The stop loss is a basic stop loss. It's just a fixed 150 points there, right? So it's all straightforward there. Yeah, the only I don't want to say complex, but the only component that has some complexity to it is the profit target here, and making sure, right, that all the profit targets from the three different cost or from all the different entry points here, right? So we might have three positions here at any given time here, right? So we might have order set A, order set B, and C, depending on how the market moves there, right? So as we get the other two cost averaging entry points there, then our profit target, let's see, well, yeah, the profit target will adjust based on price movement there, but then also, so the other two scaling in contracts here, B and C, we want to make sure that the profit targets all line up here. So if order set B and C, our scaling contracts, get filled, we want to make sure that those profit targets all line up there. So, but since the targets are all being based off of price, they're all going to be automatically synchronized there. And we do have one more trailing roll here. All right. So the profit target is going to reach a maximum pullback based on price movement here. Well, okay. So with this, let's start putting this together here. All right. So let's get BlackBird open. So I'm thinking to myself here, there's a couple of ways we could approach this. Since we might have three total entry points, right? So in other words, we're going to have three order sets here. So I'm kind of wondering how I want to approach this. One way is I could, so the first entry is going to be a market entry here. Well, since it doesn't say, I'm just going to use a market entry here. But for the two scale-ins, I have two different options. I could use a market entry, or I could use a limit entry there, and I think I'm going to go with the limit order. The limit entry. So as the market pulls back, right, we'll have resting limit entry orders there, ready to go there. But the other option is that I could use a market entry, but then if I do that, it gets a little more sophisticated, and I have to set up the placement option here so that BlackBird is monitoring when the market pulls back this 37.5 points there, right? So I'd have to go in here and let's see here. I could use the profit or loss trigger here. And so we're looking for a loss in points and set that amount. And then I could put 37.5 and get rid of that 0, 37.5, like so. And BlackBird could monitor for that, but of course with the market order, right, who knows, you might get in at 36 or 37 points, maybe, maybe you get 2 ticks of slippage there, right? But if you don't want to have uh, existing limit orders resting at the exchange for some reason. You know, if you don't want to have those entry orders out there at the exchange, then this would be the option, is to convert that to a market order. Well, actually, we could. Let's see here. Actually, we could set this as a limit order. And let's see. Well, I'm hesitant to use the other order prices because it's not fully fleshed out. So this isn't guaranteed here, but I don't have the average entry price available for entry orders here. But actually other order price does not work because that market entry won't actually have a price. Let's see here. So this will have to be a market entry. So this would have to be a market entry, and with the placement set up, if you don't want resting orders out there at the exchange, right? So this is going to introduce some slippage for sure, right? In today's markets, there's always slippage. So so instead of doing this more complicated way here, I'm gonna go with using, I'm gonna remove this, I'm gonna go with using a limit entry order here, and actually, so I'm actually back to my initial problem. Which is I don't have access to the entry price, all right, for A here. Well, all right, I don't think this is going to work, but I'm going to give this a shot. I'm going to give this a shot here. So we'll do a little test of this here. Let's see here. But first, I need to do a little math and convert points to ticks. All right. So we want 150 ticks is this 37.5 points. There. All right, so let's see if this works. And I'm gonna set up both of my scale-in orders here, and let's make sure this works before I go any further. Let's see. All right, so initial placement is now going to be 300, like so. And all right, let's go short. And so looks like it did not work. Let's see if we have any information here on the log tab about that. Nope. And I was thinking there might be some information here on the log tab about those limit entry orders, because I saw a flash on the chart here where the chart shrank down, and it looked like BlackBird was placing those limit entry orders there, but no, it doesn't. Actually, let's go to the orders here. Oh, actually it did. Let's see what happened. Filled. Oh, okay, yeah, so I was right. That, yeah, it took a limit and just, yeah, as we can see, right, negative 75, negative 37 and a half. All right, that's what happened. So, all right, yeah, so what happened here is, all right, in the initial placement, right, this other order option here, you know, this market entry has a price of 0. Yeah, so I kind of was guessing or speculating here. Yeah, that a market, you know, a market order doesn't actually have an order price retained within it. Well, all right. This is going to be less precise, but I can use the last price. So, yeah, I can just use the last price. So, but again, you know, because markets are moving so quickly, you know, back in the good old days when trading was normal, you know, if you did a market entry, you know, it was basically going to be on the last price there. Yeah. You know, so your slippage, your chance of slippage was very, very minimal, but nowadays there's going to be 1 or 2 ticks of slippage there. So that's as close as we can get to, and again, the issue is that, right, the first entry is a market entry here. Right. There. So actually, let me see if Vicus has any comments here for me. No, okay. Yeah, so if this first entry, you know, actually was something other than a market, you know, if it was set to a stop or a limit, right, and then we actually had a bar price, you know, that we're basing our entry order on, right, then, yeah, then actually there'd be no slippage. So the 2 scaling orders here, right, like we can calculate that off of, you know, off of this known price, you know, for the first entry order. So, but yeah, but this is not a known price, so yeah, so we're a little bit, yeah, so we're gonna introduce a little bit of slippage here. All right, so there's part 1 is setting up our entry orders here, right? So, right, so we have our first scaling order, 37.5 points. Next scaling order is another, right, 37.5 points past that. So let's see. Oh, here we go. Here is the next scaling here. All right. And also, yeah, all of these are 6 contracts. Now, of course, you can just go in and, you know, set the number of contracts as you see fit there, right? That's easy to adjust. So I'm just gonna leave it at 1 contract there. All right. Okay. So next part, let's take care of the easy part here. So the stop losses are really easy. So it's just 150 points. Yep, from each entry price there. All right, yep. So let's set that up here. So let's just go in and use the fixed offset there. 150 points. All right. So we're going to open up the initial placement, and so that converts to 600 ticks. So there we go. Stop loss is done. That was a piece of cake. And so now for the other stop losses here, I'm just going to copy the stop loss from A. There we go. And for our order set C, do the same thing. I'll just copy the stop loss from A, like so. There we have it. All right, stop loss is ran. Okay, so now we can focus on the more sophisticated component here, the profit target here. All right, so I'm going to convert this to a long trade because I like to think in terms of long trades. It's easier for me the way I think here. Let's see here. All right, so it's going to be plus 75 points from the lowest price there. From the lowest price. So plus 75 points. Oh, so actually, you know what? I need to know what is this lowest price? Lowest price from where? Yeah, so, or highest price. Yeah. So is this the highest price of the day and the lowest price of the day? Or is this from a swing point? So are you using maybe a swing indicator, right? And you're grabbing like the nearest swing high and swing low, or is it the daily high and daily low? Yeah, so that's actually one piece I need. Highest price after order entry. Okay, no, that cannot be done. So BlackBird does not wait to place the exit orders. BlackBird places exit orders immediately. Yeah, so we have to grab a high price or a low price, at the time of the entry order. Yeah, you can't. Yeah, BlackBird will not wait, a few seconds or a few minutes or a few bars, for price to do something. Now, those exit orders are submitted immediately. As soon as the entry order is filled, those exit orders are filled. Yeah, so we can't grab a price after the entry order is filled. So what I will do is I will just use the swing high and the swing low. All right. Okay, so actually I'm going to pause for a moment here and put the swing indicator on the chart. All right, so let's go grab this where is it? There we go, swing highs and lows. And we're going to adjust the number of swings down to 2. And let's see here. I think it's okay to reduce the swing strength here, but since I don't know, the entry, or I don't know, what the entries are based off of, I don't know the trading methodology here. So adjusting the swing strength, that will have to be, determined, by the trader to set an appropriate swing strength. I'm just going to take a guess at 5 is probably acceptable here. And the reason why I'm knocking it down to 5 is the lower the strength, the quicker, right, a swing point is identified. But also the lower the number, then we might get these intermediate swing points here, right? Which, I don't know, might be okay, may not be. Again, I don't know what the trading methodology is that determines the entry point here. So I'm going to leave it at 5 here. Let's just get that on the chart. So there we go. All right. So there's our highs and low points. used. Yeah. All right, so let's open this up again. So let's set up our first profit target, and then once we get our first profit target in, then we can copy the other profit targets. We can just copy this first one that we set up here. So we're going to use the swing highs and lows here, although so when we use that one, it uses the swing patterns, and I don't think most people like this interface because it looks quite a bit different from using, from setting up the swing indicator right on the chart here. So I'm actually just going to go and change this to indicator value. There, indicator value. And now I can open up the indicator and go and select the swing trend here. And this, I think, right, this interface is, I think most people are comfortable with, right? Because it looks exactly like setting up the indicator on the chart there. So I'm just going to knock this down to 5 there. And let's see here. You don't really need to do this, but I'm just going to turn all this stuff off just for good measure. There. All right. Now we need to select the correct plots here. Right. So in a short trade, so if we're going short, we're taking the swing high, the highest point, and adding 75 points, right? So if it is a long trade, we're taking the low and adding 75 points. Let's see here. All right, so if it's a short trade, we want the high, we want the highest high. And so if it's a long trade, we want the lowest low. There we go, lowest low. Oh, actually, hold on. Yeah, that's correct. All right, so this double bottom here and double top was throwing me off for a little bit. All right, yeah, so for a long trade, we're going to use the lowest low. And for a short trade, we're going to use the highest high. There we go. Right, so again, this is all written for taking a short trade there. Right, so our profit target, we're taking the highest, right, the swing point high, and then subtracting 75 points. All right, so let's go back to our initial placement there. So we have the swing in there. So now we need to put in that. Hold on, I need to move this down a little bit. There. All right, so we need to put in that 75 points. All right, so that's going to be 300 ticks. There. So if it's a short trade, then it's minus, right, 300 ticks there, right? Highest price minus 300 ticks for a short trade. So if we open up our indicator here, right, we have the highest high for a short trade, and then subtracting 300 ticks, which is 75 points. Let's see. All right, so now we do have a trailing here. So one thing to note, BlackBird does not place stop orders for your targets. So as far as I know, there's no way to place a target as a stop. So BlackBird only places limit orders for targets there. So if you have a broker that somehow allows you to use a stop, I would be curious as to how that broker is doing that, but in any case, that's another topic later on here. But so we have a trailing. Yep. So we have trailing going on here. So, all right. So let's go to the trailing options here, and let's enable the trailing. All right, let's add a trailing rule. Okay, so give it some kind of a name there if you want. You don't have to. Yeah, so the target's always going to be, pulling in tighter and tighter based on price movement here. All right, so yeah, so let's go into the actions, and we're going to go into the move to. So let's see here. So we're going to use the low price and the high price. So we're just going to keep tracking, right, these bar prices here. So as each bar closes, this is going to be looking right at each bar price there. And let's see here. Yeah, that's it, right? That is it. So because this is a profit target, we need to go in and adjust the allow movement here, right? So you can see right now it's set to both directions, right? But we want to restrict this kind of like it's a stop loss, like a trailing stop loss here, right? We only want the profit target to pull in or to move as price goes higher. It sounds like, yeah, we only want this profit target to move as price goes higher because we're using the highest price reached there. So for a sell, for a sell order, we're gonna move that profit target higher and higher and higher. And if it's a long trade, we're gonna move that profit target lower and lower and lower here. So we're gonna restrict the movement here. So against. Yeah, we want to use against direction. All right. So again, since this is written as a sell trade, right? So sell trade is, we want the market to go down, but we're only moving the profit target higher, right? So we're moving the profit target against the direction of the trade. So, and all right, so that should do it. And then the repeat, we're going to set this on repeat indefinitely. And so here, here's another option that we have. So you can wait for the bar to close and then move our profit target in a little tighter. Or we could move our profit targets, on a tick by well, this is points, sorry. Yeah, actually we have a bunch of options here. So as the market moves each point higher or lower, we could move that profit target based on each point of movement. Or if you want your profit target to move like a trailing stop loss, where it's tick by tick, right? There we go. Then we can say, all right, for every tick the market moves in a loss direction, then move our profit target, or maybe every 2 ticks, right? So there's a lot of flexibility here to set the resolution of how often our profit targets move. So, but I'm just gonna keep this simple here. I don't think there's any actual practical need to set this on a tick by tick movement here. Because these distances are so vast here, my assumption here is that we can just leave this on each bar. So each bar closes, then we'll update the profit target there. Right. I think that'll be just fine. So, all right, so that is our trailing profit target that's pulling in closer and closer. So our profit target is reducing as the market moves. And then we just copy that to B, and we'll copy this to C. And there we go. All right, let me just kind of double check here. I'm going to pause for a moment, double check I didn't miss anything. Oh, here we go. Okay, so here's something. Yeah, so all the stop losses are to be fixed at 150 points from the initial entry price. Yeah, for all three positions here. Okay, so actually, we're going to go in and make an adjustment. So I'm going to delete C, and I'm going to go in and modify the stop loss for B, right? So B, we want the stop loss to match whatever it is for A. So let's go to the Options tab, and let's open up the initial placement. And so we're going to strip out. We actually don't want an offset here. And this time, this is a situation where we are going to use other order price. There we go. And we want to match the stop loss for A. There we go. So we want to set the stop loss for B to the stop loss for A. Right? So there we go. So that's how we get all our stop losses to match the initial stop loss position there. Okay. So now that we got that corrected, I can now go in to the stop loss for C, and we'll just copy the stop loss from B. There we go. All right, and if we open this up, there we go, right? Set to other order price, and it's utilizing the stop loss for A. So there you go, and no offset. There we go. So now all the stop losses will match each other. Okay, so there we go. And let me double check some more here, see if I might have missed something else. All right, yeah. So after kind of reading this again here, I think I'm gonna make the same adjustment to the profit targets here. Yeah. So this last statement here, right? Is there a way to configure so that the targets for B and C, always align, with the current price of the profit target for A? Yeah. So I'm pretty sure that in theory, that the way this is set up, especially with the trailing here, right? So once we have this simple trailing here where we're just moving it based on, whatever the highest high price is or lowest low price is, right? Each profit target, each trailing rule is going to see the exact same high and low prices, right? So this is going to guarantee that the profit targets are all in sync there because of the trailing rules here. But I am gonna go in here, and so the one thing that might actually change are the swing points here. Yeah. So right, we can see here, right? So as price is pulling back, right, our high swing points are dropping down here, which temporarily, because the swing point prices are moving, right, as prices moving up and down, then for the initial placement, right, these profit targets might be out of sync for one bar, but then as soon as a bar closes, right, the trailing rules kick in, and the trailing rules are all the same, so that will resynchronize all the profit targets there. I guess, just just for good measure, yeah, I'm gonna go and use the other order price option here. So we want to match the profit target for A. So there you go. Get that, switch that over, and clear out the offset there. Yeah, we want it to match it exactly. So there we go. Made that change. I'm going to open up this profit target and make that same change. So I'm going to go into the initial placement there. Switch this from indicator value back to price. There we have other order price set, and we have the profit target A set, and we just need to clear out the offset there, and we should be good to go. All right, let's see here. Yeah, this one's fairly complicated, so I'm actually going to save this file out. All right, I think that's a close enough name there for what we're doing. All right, let's save that out. And let's see. All right, so this requires a lot of market movement here. So I'm actually going to disconnect my data feed here. I'm going to switch data feeds. So let's disable the strategy, and let's switch our data feeds. And oh, hold on. No, I should have removed that open position there. Let's see. Let's close that. There we go. All right. Yeah, it's good to make sure you do that. Keep Ninja's database, clean. There we go. All right, so let's switch over to the simulated data feed. There, excellent. And re-enable BlackBird. Let's see. All right, the market's going down. What am I on? A 15-second chart. Yeah, all right. I think that works. Let me pull the market down and let's go long. The simulated data feed is kind of slow to get going here. All right. So while I'm waiting on this, while we're waiting on the market to go down. All right. Hold on a moment. We are missing the other entry orders. Let's see what happened here. Yeah, hopefully someday Ninja will stop the cancel button from getting really long like this. There we go. All right, now I can see everything. And oh, okay. All right, let's close this out. And yeah, all right. I did not put the negative symbol in to our scale in entry orders there. Yeah, there's the problem. All right. That's all it takes is forgetting that limit symbol, or negative symbol, sorry. All right, get that fixed real quick. All right, get that negative number in there. All right, save that. Yeah, okay, good. Our market's still moving down. And so let's go long. There we go. Excellent. All right, that's what we want to see. Oh. All right, now, yeah, we just wait once again here. Oh, I need to pull the market down. We're waiting on the market to pull down and fill these other orders, right? And watch the trailing, make sure that's all, the profit targets are trailing down and everything. I'm gonna go to the Q&A window here and see if there's any follow-up questions or comments here while I was working on building that here. Let's see. Oh, all right. Yeah. So Vika said I could use a limit entry order for A. So all right. So we'll get back to that here. There we go. Let's pop that right there. That way we can watch. Yeah. There we go. We can watch that profit target is trailing down. So good. Let's see here. All right, so we're gonna adjust the, so we can adjust this to a limit entry, and that will guarantee, so kind of going back to this earlier discussion, that will guarantee that these two scale-ins, right, are exactly 150 ticks and 300 ticks offset from a known, entry price here, right? So again, to repeat what was discussed earlier, right? Because this is a market entry, we don't know exactly what that entry price will be. So instead, we don't know exactly what that entry price will be in relationship to using the last price, right? So the last price will be very close to that, but there could be a tick or two of slippage, right? Depending on how crazy the markets are, right? When this trade gets placed. So, and so there we go. So as the market's dropping, we can see our profit targets pulling in as well. Okay, yeah. So this is a comment here. Yeah, Vic is. It's just commenting here that he was able, so this is going back to the profit targets here. Yeah, that for the profit target trailing, he was able to use in the repeat the ticks of movement in a loss direction. Yep. Either way. So if you really need your profit targets to move tick by tick, then this is how you want to set up the repeat, is ticks of movement, and their profit targets will move tick by tick here. So but again, it all depends on the chart type that you're trading with. So if you're on a 10-minute chart, in which case there could be only a few bars, between, the profit target and these other entry orders, right? Obviously, the larger the time frame is on your chart, then the less bars you're working with. So if that's the case, right, if there's fewer bars, that it takes to reach your other entry orders here, then you might want to switch to ticks of movement, right, or points of movement as well. Right? So either way works. And I could use the NQ. When you're using the simulated data feed, I don't think it makes any difference or much of a difference if you're using the simulated on the ES or the NQ. I'm not positive on that. All right, we're almost there. There we have it. All right. So we got that filled, and bingo, our profit target for B landed right on top of the profit target for A. There we go. Scroll up. All right. Profit target B is Yeah, 60.33. Oh, there's our two profit targets. Yeah, there we go. Okay, yeah, so they're both synchronizing. Great. All right, well, while we are waiting for the grass to grow here and the market to come down, let's just do a recap here, because I think we're done with this. When order set B got filled, that pretty much, illustrated that our profit targets are lining up perfectly, which was a concern there in the question. And yeah, so that was kind of like one of the essential requirements here. It's making sure the profit targets line up like that. So we know that's happening there. Yeah, so while we're waiting this to pull in and fill our last entry, let's just kind of recap here. Some of the key parts here, right? So the best that we can do right now to match our, or to get our scale in entry prices, exactly. Let's pull up this. Yeah, to get our entries exactly this 37.5 points offset, right? And then the next one 75 points, right, from the initial entry price is, let's go to the options tab, right, is we are using the last price, right? So that's as close as we're going to get it. So again, there might be a tick or two difference there, and hopefully that doesn't really matter, considering the large distances that are being traded. Hopefully a tick or two doesn't matter too much, but but just be aware of that. At some point in the future, I'm sure that we're gonna come back and revisit the other order prices here and probably add some more options in here. So yeah, like for example, that market entry on the list of orders here, right, that actually yeah, my guess is we might just replace this with the entry price. Yeah, but again, this yeah, the other order prices here isn't 100% fleshed out. So I think it's like 98% there. But Jeremy had to move on to other projects here. So I'm sure at some point we'll come back and revisit this. And I'm pretty sure there's some other further improvements that we can make to this. So all right. But for now, we're going to use the last price here. That's going to synchronize, the scale-in orders to the entry price of this market entry as best as we can get. All right, so that's one element here. Cancel that. And the next element here is our profit target. All right, so the initial placement is we're using a swing indicator, right, to grab whatever the latest highest high is for a short, or the latest lowest low for a long trade there, right? And again, depending on the bar sizes and more or less your trading methodology, you will probably want to adjust the swing strength here, right? And find whatever setting you like best, to find that recent high and low point there, right? So that's subject to adjustments there. So that's the initial entry. And the next is the trailing for the profit target here. All right, so there's no trigger, right? So that trailing kicks in immediately. Oh, and there we go. Sorry. So we just had our entry for order set C just filled, and everything is, all the profit targets are synced up. So, and again, these profit targets are guaranteed to be synced up because we have all of our trailing rolls are exactly the same, and the trailing rolls are just using bar prices, right? So obviously bar prices are the same for every profit target there. But a key thing to remember is that we are restricting the movement of our profit targets. So the allowed movement is against the direction of the trade, right? Because our profit target is pulling in there, right? Our profit target's pulling in as the market's moving down. So, right. And actually, I'm going to stop this for a moment here. So our profit targets are following the low price if we're in a long trade, right? Minus the, or add, sorry, we're taking the low price and then adding 75 points or 300 ticks, right? And vice versa for a short trade. High price minus 300 ticks. Yep. All right, and then the last component here for the trailing roll is to decide, is leaving it, letting the profit target update once per bar, or do you want to go with once per point of movement or once per tick of movement? So, and let's see here. All right, so that's our initial profit target. And then the scale and profit targets for the initial placement, we are using that other order price and we're matching the profit target for A there. Right. And obviously the trailing rolls, as I mentioned before, the trailing rolls are all exactly the same for all three profit targets there. So, all right. And yeah, I guess I'll just mention here. So the stop loss for the scale-in contracts, switch back to the options tab. So the stop loss here is, we are using the other order price and we're just matching the stop loss for A. So, yeah. So that way all of our stop losses are synchronized together. There. That sums it up here. So, and I think, actually, I think I just remembered one other element here of the requirements here. Let me see if I can find it here. Oh, yes, of course. So very obvious. So, right. So once the profit target has been hit, once the profit target has been hit, then we do need to cancel, right, the other, we do need to cancel the other scale-in entry orders, right? Makes sense, right? We don't want to leave these entry orders just hanging out there. So let's make another adjustment here. So let's go into our first scale-in entry order. and we're going to go to the cancel option here, right? So this is cancel option. And let's see here. Let's switch to the advanced tab, and we're going to cancel the interval. So we're going to delete the interval there and go to the add button, and we're going to monitor the profit target orders here, right? So we're going to use order status changed. And let's see here. So we want to know if the profit target for A is filled, right? Probably any filled, right? So if any of the contracts for profit target A are filled, then we're out of the trade here, right? And so that is our trigger to cancel this entry order, right? So there we go. Click OK, and we're going to do the same thing for our second entry order. Go into the cancel, switch to the advanced tab. We're going to delete the interval here. We don't need this. And we're going to add a order status changed. All right, so which order do we want to monitor? That profit target for A, and then adjust this to any number of contracts filled here, right? Which is probably a good thing to use any filled, especially when you're working with, right, a multi-contract system here, right? So if we're working with 6 contracts on all this, right? Yeah. So let's see here. All right. Well, I will save that out again with that last little adjustment there. There. And let's see. Also, I think there is one other here. Ah, yes. All right. Once the position of the trade, right, has reached a 75-point loss, or in other words, if the entry order for C is filled, right, because the entry order for C is 75 points, it's a 75-point loss, then we want to turn off the auto trailing. Yeah, so right now, right, the profit targets are continuing to trail here. Okay, so we need to make one more adjustment here. Oh, actually, it says it's going to be a break even. All right. Yeah, so yeah, we can see here that it's not correlating with a break, right? Our profit target did not reach break even yet. Oh, okay, that's right. So this is incorrect. This is not actually break even. Yeah, so this is not break even. This is actually the entry price of the first order set. Yeah, all right. But okay, so in any case, essentially, I'm just going to use these numbers here to determine when the profit target should stop moving here. So I'm going to have to dive into the settings. So this is an element of the trailing rule here that I don't get asked about a lot here. So I'm going to have to dive in and see what options we have available. So I'm thinking that, so there's 2 ways we could do this. I can, let's see here. So I think I can monitor for 70 points of loss, or I can monitor for when our entry order for C is filled, right? Because our entry order for C is at 75 points, right? So this value and this value matches up here. right, but in any case, let's see here. All right, so I'm going to delete this profit target, and I guess let's start with our first profit target here, and let's go into the trailing actions. And so to stop this from trailing, and we're going to change our repeat here. So actually, we're not repeating indefinitely. We are repeating until. Repeat until. And let's see here. We'll switch this over to a tick by tick. I'll switch it over to a tick by tick based on Vika's comment. All right, so now we're going to go into the repeat until menu here. And all right, I'm going to use, well, yeah, I was thinking I was going to use the profit or loss. The issue with the profit or loss is if I use a loss and then set this to points, right, I can put in 75 points. The issue is that the profit or loss, right, the calculation that NinjaTrader uses is based off of the average entry price, right? So your P&L is based off of this number here from the average entry price. So it's not based on the first entry, right? Your P&L is never based off of your first entry there. So yeah, NinjaTrader is always using your average entry price when it's returning, you know, whether you're in a profit or a loss there, right? So so that actually won't work in our case. So let's see here. There it is. All right, so if I scroll down a little bit, I have the order status changed. And this was my initial thought here. And the simplest way, you know, to do this, which is we'll monitor to see when the limit entry order for C is filled, right? So we know that when this entry order is filled, that we've reached that 75 points, right, of a pullback here, 75 points of a loss. So yeah, so we'll set it to that there. And yeah, all right. And if I think if you wanted to stop the trailing, maybe a tick or two, right, before this 75 points, you know, just to give yourself a little margin of error, then we could set the repeat to every 2 ticks of movement, right? So that could, you know, again, it all kind of depends on exactly where the first entry is versus exactly, you know, the whole timing of when our last scaling order gets filled here. So, but I think, you know, just knocking this down to 2 ticks of movement will most likely stop our stop loss trailing. All right, it will stop our profit target trailing from just before hitting the entry price for A. Yeah, so this actually is not the break even; it's the entry price for A. So, right. Yeah, so 2 ticks, maybe 3 ticks there. So that should, I think most of the times that'll probably give you a break even +1 or break even +2 there. If you want to do that, try that out. So, all right. So I'll just leave it at 2. So there we go. So our repeat is changed to repeat until, right? Until our limit entry order for C is filled. All right, and this limit entry is sitting at this 75 points here. There. All right, so make that change, and then I'm going to go into the profit target for B, and I'm going to make that same change. So go to repeat until, and then go into the repeat until menu here, and scroll down to the order status changed trigger, and then we just need to set up this order status change. So when the limit entry order is filled, there we go, that turns off the trailing. And again, I'm going to set this to, all right, ticks of movement in a lost direction, right? Again, we're only pulling in our profit target when the market moves in a lost direction. And I'll knock that up to 2 as well. And there we go. So now we have this profit target trailing adjusted. And so now for the second scale in order here, I can just go and copy B. There we go. All right, let me save that. And yep, there we go. So now I got everything. Okay. Yeah, this is what I was remembering, that there was some element of turning the trailing off at some point, and also making sure that our entry orders, our extra scale in entry orders were canceled. Yeah, I mean that should always go for every system that does a cost averaging, right? Every system that has scale in orders for cost averaging, you always want to make sure that you set up the cancel option here to make sure that you're canceling these unused entry orders here, right? When a profit target, right? When that first profit target's getting hit. So. Okay, let me check to see if there's, oh yeah, that's right. There was one other comment here. Yeah, from Vika said we could use a limit order for order set A. Okay, yeah. So let me go through that there. Let's get this back up. Yeah, so if we wanted to perfectly make sure that these scale in limit orders are exactly 150 ticks or 37.5 points and 75 points, right? Perfectly offset from this first entry order here. Yeah, then what I mentioned before is that, right, we can't use a market entry, right? That's, right? So we don't know exactly what that price will be, but if we switch to a limit, right, or a stop here, I will, let's see here, I'll just set it as a limit order to the closing price, like so. And then the other two scale-in contracts. All right, so now we have a known fixed price that we're working from. So for the initial placement of our scale-in orders, instead of using the last price, I can adjust these to the closing price there as well. So let's go into this other one. And adjust that to the closing price. Right? So this closing price here that's being referenced, right? They're all the same. They're all the closing price from the same bar there, right? So always keep in mind that the way BlackBird is designed, right? It's designed for the typical trader. So when you click the go long button to trade, or when a trade signal comes in, right, the average trade is that all of our entry orders, are to go in all at the same time, right? And then we have different profit targets, right? So these scale-in orders are going in at the same time, right, that the first entry order goes in. So that means that NinjaTrader is looking at the closing price of the bar at the same time for all of these entry orders, right, for all of these order sets here. Yeah. So that's why this setting this to a bar price, setting this to a bar price does get our scale-in entry orders, that offset price does get them all synchronized. So to exactly those values there. All right. Okay, yeah, so I'm going to leave it the way it was here. So I'm going to cancel this. And so the saved file, I'm just going to keep it to this more universal solution here, even though there might be a tick or two, right, of variance there. So, all right, so that was the last, I think the last follow-up there to discuss, although, let's see. Oh, yep. And Vikas did remind me, yep, how do we stop the trailing at 75 points? All right, so I did get that covered. And all right, so Vikas is saying perfect. So I think we are squared away on this question here.